About to go live. And, yeah. All right. Hello. Welcome to a Comic Tropes live stream. Hello to Raul. Raul, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Let me promote this to my social media. So just give me a minute to basically get set up here. And just sort of doodling today. Nothing too fancy. But I'm looking forward to chatting with all of you and getting caught up. I'm in the works on the next 2 comic tropes. Sometimes I usually work on more than one at a time, like in various stages of production. So the next one will basically be a funny one, and then I've adjusted my schedule. I've been meaning to talk about Berserk and Kentaro Miura, and since it was just, announced last night that he'd passed away, I decided to bump that earlier in my schedule since, it's a little more relevant right now. That seems like a not even appropriate way to mention it. I don't know what else to say, but, I think that, it's something I've always wanted to talk about, and now just felt like it was the right time to do that. But before that, I've decided I am still going to move forward with a funnier episode that I'm working on. To the next 2. Oh, good. My sister's here. Hello, Jean. Nice to see you there. And hello to some of the people that I'm seeing. Just taking a quick glance at the chat room. I'll say hello to Lunar Module, Bubba, XJ, Comic Book John, Matt, Mandela, Horizon, Jared. Nice to see you. Please tell me your classic intros return. For now, that was probably just a one-time thing, but if I have an idea, I'll do it, but I don't want to feel obligated to do it every time. I felt like some of them, I don't know, some of them I love, and some of them I just don't love as much, so we'll see. I'm just tweeting this real quick. Inking Omni-Man and chatting with all of you. Whoa, looks like got some super chats. Thank you. Squangle asks, thoughts on Radiant Black so far? I flipped through the first issue, but I didn't pick it up. It does look quite well done. Maybe sort of like an American take on Power Rangers in a sense, like a more American take, but with just one hero. I don't know. Looked cool. Didn't pick it up, but it definitely looked good. Looked well done. Joe Anderson also with a super chat saying it was awesome seeing you interview Ed Piskor a few weeks back. Oh, that's so kind of you. I really enjoyed doing that. I will say I was still recovering from being very sick at the time, so that was faking that I had energy and then everything was actually really, really tough in that moment. But I liked how it came out. Ed was very forthcoming, had a lot to say about the creative process. I picked up issue 1 of Red Room this past Wednesday. So let me throw it out to all of you. What have you guys picked up for comic books in the last week or two? I'd love to hear what you're all loving. I see somebody talking about Ultra Mega. I do read that, but issue 3 didn't get delivered on time to my comic book store, so when it arrives, it will be held for me, but I'm not up to date on that one. What else? I will say that, Monsters is the best comic I've read in ages. That was, 2 weeks ago now, from Barry Windsor Smith. Something like 37 years in the making. Pretty amazing stuff. Radiant Black isn't made by Kirkman. It's published through his imprint. So, I believe it's a Skybound book anyway. I'm pretty sure. Hello, Maxi from Argentina. Well, hello from the United States. No, I did get the beer virus, Alfonso, and that intro, if you watched my latest episode, was me in the hospital about 3 days after it had been touch and go, but I was still in the hospital for a couple more days. And I just decided you know what? Like, I'm going to go for making this intro because if I make it through this virus, to me, that's a kind of funny intro. And if I don't make it, it'll just be on my phone and no one will ever see it. So I don't have much to lose. I absolutely watched Invincible on Prime. For anyone who doesn't know, that's a book that I... Oh, it's not Skybound? Okay, XJ is saying it isn't. That might make sense, because I actually do proofread Skybound stuff, and now that I think of it, I don't remember getting sent that one. Hello, Rojaws. Welcome back. Monsters was amazing. Thank you, Joe. I agree. Can't stay long, but I wanted to say that I'm glad you pulled through. Well, thank you, Gladstone. I'm glad, too. I'm glad to be here. You know what? I was dealing with lingering fatigue and exhaustion for a while there. It was very frustrating. And then all of a sudden, after I got my second vaccine shot, like I did get a little sick again, but like about 3 days later, all of a sudden, like the last 2 or 3 days now, I felt like I have a good amount of energy. I really feel like I'm back to myself. Still sometimes some fatigue after I've been on my feet for like about 5 hours, 6 hours at work, but I can tough it out. I can do a full shift. So, yeah. Am I hyped for Skybound X? Absolutely. Clementine in the Walking Dead comic book universe. We're going to get some of the best artists that have worked on Skybound stuff. It's going to be a blast. Skybound X is definitely something that should be on your radar, celebrating 10 years of Kirkman's imprint, Skybound, through Image, and it's going to have like a lot of fantastic creators that he's worked with. It's really going to be good. So I think it's a 5-issue series later this summer. Should be awesome. Got your second dose today. Congratulations, Captain Negativity. That is great, great news. Wow, I love hearing that so many people like Invincible. I'm a big fan too. Obviously, you guys know that I know Robert, but I've always considered Corey Walker, the original artist, the co-creator. Like, I've always considered him a good friend. He's so ridiculously talented, in my opinion, and he's the guy that also did all of the main character designs for the animated series, which I like that it looks like his art. I really think it does. I have read Noctera. Mark Taktak asks, hello from the UK there. Noctera is one of the better ongoing comics that I've come across in recent years. I love the world building, and I actually understand the goal of the main character. It's tied to like family and stuff, although I don't know where it's going to go in issue 4. Oh, Giorno asks about my thoughts on the Jupiter's Legacy Netflix show. Yeah, you know what? I don't think it's for me. I watched the first episode. I got like vibes of like, I was like, oh, this show didn't get the same sort of budget that like some Netflix shows got, because the special effects were definitely sort of not even quite CW level, in my opinion. Actors seemed okay. As far as the comics go, I'm a huge fan of Frank Quitely, so I love the art there. I'm not a huge fan of Mark Millar's writing usually. His plots and ideas I tend to like, but the execution always seems a little nihilistic or grimdark. So yeah, I tried to watch that first episode and it didn't hook me, so I don't know if I'm going to be going back to that personally. Interesting question. Yeah, a bunch of people mentioning how they're sad about the passing away of Kentaro Miura. Fear Agent. Yeah, Fear Agent's great too. Totally agree. Totally agree. Let's see. I'm in the mood to challenge myself in the near future artistically, but I need to balance that with, still making comic tropes, working my day job, and writing. I really, really want to potentially get like maybe one of my comics out maybe towards the end of the year, or at least in production by fall. So that's something that's become more important to me since I got really, really sick. You started reading Savage Dragon because of Invincible. That's so funny. That That's great. That's great. It's since Dragon's been around, so much longer. It's potentially the other way around. But of course, you can discover comics at any time, and there's no time limit that you have to read a comic before you're a fan. Some people saying, do I prefer Cory Walker or Ryan Ottley's work? Well, I like Ryan too. I don't want to disparage him because what Ryan did was incredible. He worked on a monthly basis for a way longer time than hardly anybody else in comics does, certainly these days, on one title. So consistent, and his art definitely got better and better as the series went on. He's incredibly talented. But if you're asking me as a personal preference, we're always going to have a preference in terms of like what art appeals to us the most. And I would say that Cory's art like radically appeals to me. Like it's one of my absolute like favorite sort of styles. It's just so clean and precise, but full of energy as well. It's not like clinical or anything. I would definitely say Cory if I had to choose there. But massive respect for both of them, and it's definitely not to like say like I like this because I don't like that. Interesting question. What comic am I working on right now? Well, nothing you would hear of. I mean, I've got some of my own ideas that I'm, I've got sort of plotted out, but now I need to really script it out, which is the time-consuming part of writing. And then I can maybe hire an artist. I've got basically two ideas. One's horror, one's more sci-fi. Oh, thank you, Ben, for the super chat. In all gratitude that you are still alive and powering through, keep telling us about comics. Wow. I don't think Robert Kirkman is going to do Solid Blood. I think that was just sort of a one-off. I think he's got some good ideas coming, but I don't think that he plans on doing Solid Blood. But the fact that that's all designed as though it's an alternate universe where that happened is very entertaining. All right, so I should get started here. Let me see. I should let me zoom in a little actually on this, and then can just sort of get started like doodling around with some of the inking. Nothing fancy today, just having fun. It's kind of what I always do in these live streams. I'm just trying to get better slowly. Play around with different techniques. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just trying to do the best I can and push myself a little bit each time. And a big part of this is to also get to chat with everybody else out there. It means a lot to me. Let's see. Glad to see you're better and you're recovering. You reignited my love of comics about a year ago when I discovered your channel. What you do is amazing. Thank you so much. Oh, well, that's so kind of you, Zeed. I just think comics is such an amazing medium. I just want to share that love by analyzing some of it on a slightly more academic level. But it's just my favorite artistic medium. Oh, thank you for the kind words. Aftershock has been publishing some great comics. Oh, what's the one you'd recommend then? I've been seeing some intriguing stuff on the stands from publishers like Vault, Scout, TKO, and that's to say nothing of how like places like Boom, IDW, Dynamite all seem to be growing. Some people like worry, oh, the comics industry, this or that, and I'm like, there's still as many good titles and bad titles as there always have been. You just need to know where to look. Speaking of Invincible tying into other comics, what are your opinions on Brit? Well, Brit means a lot to me. That was another... I'll answer your question in a minute, Jeannie. Brit was a comic that was, written by Robert and drawn by my friend Tony Moore, guy who also started Walking Dead with him. So I loved that. And then there was a great ongoing run of like 12 issues written by my late friend Chemo and drawn by my good friend Nate Belgard. I love that run. I think he set up some amazing stuff, added to the cast of Brit, and Brit has since then just mostly featured in as, I think, the leader of Guardians of the Globe. It's been a little while since I read his all. But man, I thought Chemo's run with Nate was fantastic. Just a combination of great writing and great art. And I miss Chemo. He was a great guy. So talented. Didn't do a ton before he was gone too soon. Got to write a little Batman. Wrote Brit. Wrote a bunch of indie stuff. Anyway, will I ever review Naruto? I've never actually read or seen Naruto, although I will say that one of my coworkers, she's a big fan, so every once in a while I ask a little bit about it to try to learn, see what the best jumping on point would potentially be if I ever decided to go down that rabbit hole. I never got to explain why I left Patreon. Nothing to do with quality, change in finances. Yeah, Dean, that stuff happens all the time. I'm never gonna hold anybody personal, I don't take it personally, is what I guess I'm trying to say. If somebody needs to leave my Patreon, I understand that it's almost definitely going to be, a financial decision. That's okay. It's kind of you to have supported me at all. My Patreon means a lot to me. So if you've never checked it out, on Patreon, I do my best to do some blog posts, do the occasional early access for episodes, sometimes an exclusive video, sometimes some voting. I try to do some things there, but mostly it's just so that people can sort of help support, and I appreciate it. Where am I at in Berserk right now? I've read through the Golden Age arc, which I loved, and I think most people seem to think that that's one of the best arcs. So there's 4 arcs after that that I haven't read yet. But I think I've still got opinions on both the creator and the work. Let's see. Have I worked in comics official? If you can you tell us what work you did? Have I worked in comics? Yeah. First of all, I've done plenty of what you'd call indie or self-published stuff. I did a lot of that in the early 2000s through the 2010s. In terms of anything bigger, I've illustrated some stories and some stuff that would probably be classified more as educational comics. And then I've just been proofreading Robert's stuff for a long time. So that's about it. As a fan amateur artist, I was wondering how you and other creators deal with burnout. That's an interesting question, Diego. Burnout is a real thing. I definitely have felt a little bit of that just doing, comic tropes, that I have a challenge maintaining my focus and energy and stuff. I think that if you truly feel burnout, if you recognize it to be burnout, you have to be fair to both yourself and your audience and take a break. Because you're not going to produce quality work if you aren't passionate about it. So that's a challenge. And how do you try to avoid burnout? If I had the perfect answer, I'd probably be a millionaire because I could just do self-help stuff. I think it's just trying to take a step back. Instead of looking at the fine details, look at the big picture. What excited you about comics or whatever pursuit you're in to begin with, and how can you recreate that feeling so that it doesn't feel like just work, that it feels like something that you are passionate about. I'm having some wine. I recently learned that having the occasional bit of wine is quite good for me. I'm diabetic, and I thought that I had to avoid alcohol because of things like sugar and carbs. But then I found out that distilled spirits like gin and vodka, no sugar or carbs, totally okay to have that. And wine is actually good too. It will make your body produce more insulin if you have a small amount. So it's actually good for me. Eric Sandberg says, when I see Omni-Man, I can't help but think, do you want the mustache on or off? Off. Too bad. What was that from? That sounds very familiar when you say that. Off. Too bad. I'm thinking C-Lab 2021. Is that what it's from? No, I didn't pick up the Fantastic Four #1 Life story. Did not realize that issue came out. I totally missed that. I'd be interested in that potentially. How can you start at comics on the modern times? How can you be discovered? Just get your work out there. There's so few barriers to entry with publishing online. That's a great way to form an audience. And if you put stuff out on a consistent basis, you will attract an audience. It's what I've done with this YouTube channel. It's just getting stuff out. People know that, they start to realize that they can rely on you. So you have to be patient and really commit to it for a while. You can't expect an immediate audience or an immediate response, but it will come. Oh, my sister asked a question, and it slipped my mind for a moment. I'm sorry, Jean. She asked, what tools am I using today? Sketch this out lightly with my Pentel Graph Gear 0.5 mechanical pencil. And I had a 3-point grid that I already drew, so I lightboxed that under here to lay out these buildings. I lightboxed the 3-point grid to just put in some basic shapes for some destroyed buildings. And now I'm inking with some brush pens that I got in Japan that I just like working with. Mini wine juice boxes are so sci-fi. Did you hear Urasawa's Pluto is being made into an anime? I did not hear that, James. Well, I'd potentially be very interested in that because I love everything by Naoki Urasawa. By publishing online, do you mean webcomics? I do. I mean, you could put that on something like Tapas, for instance, or one of the other sites like that. I'm just talking there if you didn't have much money to spend. Obviously, if you can, just print a couple hundred issues of a book or even a couple dozen, just so that you can have things to take to cons. That'll show that you saw something through to completion. Am I planning on a Savage Dragon review? Yeah, potentially. I love Eric Larson. You said that it's important to indie comics. Personally, I don't really consider Image indie. I think that they're pretty huge and they do superheroes. So indie, I definitely consider a smaller audience and less mainstream genres. That's just me. I don't know if everybody would agree with that, but yeah. But I don't consider Image indie. They started with Malibu funding too. Yeah. Of course I like Berserker. Yeah, quite a bit. I have to admit that when I first started reading it, I didn't necessarily love the art. But I do think that improved quite quickly. Yeah. And I also give Miura-san credit for being willing to update his technique and style in later years, because I think it was 2015 he made the move to start drawing digitally instead of just traditional pen and ink. And when you think about that, he was almost 50 when he started doing that. That's not nothing, folks. I mean, you've been working for over 30 years one way, and then all of a sudden you're going to switch it up, like how you do your day-to-day work. That's a big deal. So I was very impressed at that, that he was willing to adapt with the times to make sure that, he was relevant, could, still probably get, quality apprentices and stuff, because they probably want to work that way. Yeah, I think his art improved, actually, quite quickly. Do you read any webcomics? One or two by my friend Randy Stone. He does one called Bullet that I like. That's about it right now. What are your favorite short-lived publishers of the 90s bubble? Oh, yeah. You're saying Shooter's Defiant Comics. Well, the cool thing about Defiant was definitely... who was that artist that I love? He went on to make Stray Bullets. David Lapham. Great artist. How do you find your own art style? By not trying to copy any other art styles, by just trying to learn how to draw from real life. Because trust me, everybody has their own style, and it just comes out organically. Just don't try to copy somebody else's style just because you like it. Just try to draw what you see. I mean, you're allowed to experiment, of course. I'm just saying, it'll happen. You'll develop your own style. What's my favorite character in Invincible? Invincible himself. My Hero Academia's author said he copied other art styles. Hey, there's no one way to do anything. I'm just giving my 2 cents. It's interesting. I think that actually it's okay to copy other art styles when you're first learning to draw. But the question was, how do you develop your own style? And I think it's just constantly refreshing yourself by going back to basics and just focusing on some life drawing. And then when you go back to drawing, you'll have incorporated some of your own quirks, essentially your shorthands and your mistakes, and that becomes your style. Yeah. It just develops, it just develops. But if you try to just copy something, eventually tastes will change and you'll be sort of locked into a certain way of doing things. I'm making a hybrid of Japanese manga and American comics. Can you evaluate my good sir when it's done? I don't know what your good sir is. How did you meet Robert Kirkman? In person, I met him at Chicago Comic-Con back in I don't know, maybe 99. But online, I met him by writing to him because I discovered his comic Battle Pope, his first book, and I wrote to him. And part of my writing, this is so arrogant in retrospect, it's kind of like a rude thing to tell people. I was like, hey, I loved it, but just so you know, there were some spelling mistakes. And so ever since that day, he's been sending me his work to proofread. He put me to work right away. He's a good guy. He's very driven. Very driven. Is your comic collection big? Not at all. It used to be good size. I had 30 long boxes, but 7 years ago, moved across the country. I sold them all. Kept a few sentimental favorites, but sold them all. Yeah. Lots of people are asking that, KM. Yes, I was thinking of... I've been thinking of doing a Berserk or really Kantaro Miura episode for a little while. I've decided to bump it up in my schedule, but not rush it out for the next episode. The next episode I do will be funnier, and then I'll do one on Berserk. I don't think correcting spelling mistakes is arrogant. You are helping him improve. Yeah, but it could come off as like being a know-it-all. It could. I don't think I did, obviously. Instead, we became, friends. But it could have gone a different way if I hadn't, like, phrased it quite right. I could have come out, across as a jerk. Fortunately, he did not take offense. Instead, he just was like, all right, catch it. You can't. You. Oh, all right. Well, tell you what, why don't you catch those errors? I don't know if that's much of a Kirkman impression. How much do you get paid for proofreading? 0. 0. Because by the time I thought to even ask for credit, which was like, after doing it for like a decade or something, he was like, well, now I've got a whole studio at Image, and I've got some editors, so you're actually just not the only guy that does it now. And I was like, oh, okay. So he didn't need me anymore. I should have asked about it earlier. That's okay. Tales from your superhero crime fighting days. It's an interesting one, Horizon. Well, all right. Let me think. So, for those that don't know, when I first moved out to Seattle, I didn't really know anyone, and I hung out with Phoenix Jones, who is an actual, MMA fighter, like a pro, and he's also really into comics, and he decided to start dressing up like a superhero in a bulletproof suit and patrolling the streets of Seattle. And for a year, I did that with him before I sort of felt like, I'm actually not making that much of a difference. So, what's a good story? Well, one thing that's, like, just kind of nicer was, one of the very first nights I went out with him, I didn't even have a superhero suit yet. I just, went out in a bulletproof vest with a hoodie. That was it. And it was New Year's Eve. Some pretty raucous, nutsy stuff going on that night, obviously. And among the other things that we came across that night, one of them was a really distraught gentleman who wasn't from the city. He had come into the city to, hit the bars with his girlfriend, and they'd gotten separated, and neither of them had a cell phone. And, he was like, will you help me? Because, we were in costumes, essentially, or at least Phoenix was. And we're like, yeah, we'll help. And, he gave us a description. First thing we said was, well, talk to the police. He's like, I did. I was like, okay, so they're looking. We'll look too, And I just remembered the description, and I got that. Sorry, that guy had a cell phone, but his girlfriend didn't. That's what it was. So I wrote down his cell phone number, and I just kept my eyes open all that night. And after, like, a couple hours, we were passing a Subway, and I saw this girl that looked like what he described, and I went in, and I was like, are you so-and-so? And she's like, yes. And she actually didn't speak much English, I think, if I remember correctly. I think they were a Hispanic couple. But I speak a little bit of Spanish, so I was, and so I was able to talk to her, and I was like, your boyfriend is looking for you. She's like, I don't know where to find him. I was like, I know where to find him. Hold on, I'm going to call him right now. And I called him, and he came to the Subway, and they were reunited. Very happy ending. Cut to, 9 months later, right? Thank you for the super chat, John Knox. I'll continue with my story in just a sec. I've used a video or two of yours in my art appreciation classes when I'm going over sequential art. Well, that's amazing. Thank you for the super chat. That's amazing. Yeah, of course I know what happened with Phoenix Jones. So it's 9 months later or something, and we're out there, and we're actually with a producer for this British show. There's a guy named Carl Pilkington that had a weird show. He's a guy that Ricky Gervais discovered, and he's just sort of a weird dum-dum. And he was thinking of doing an episode on real life superheroes. I think he actually did. He did a travel show. But anyway, so for this, it wasn't Carl, but one of his producers followed us along to see what we did, to see if they wanted to, like, film with us for the show. And we bumped into that guy that I'd helped. He was just by himself this day, but he recognized Phoenix, and he was like, he ran up, and they were like, "Oh, how do you know Phoenix?" He was like, "Oh, one of the guys that he was with, really helped me, like, found my missing girlfriend, and, like, really saved us a lot of, like, heartache that night, and I'll never forget it," and this, that. And I pulled my mask off. I was wearing a mask, and I was like, "Hey man, that's actually me. I remember you." And he was like, oh my god, you helped me so much. This guy's the best." And it just felt good. That wasn't a fight or a chase or anything, but I'd helped someone, and that felt good. What is my superhero name, asks Christine. It was Omega. I look back at that, and I'm bemused that I thought I could make a difference as a superhero. But it was an interesting time. And sometimes I think about doing, like, a one-off comic book talking about both the exciting stuff that happened, but also, like, how I felt about it, and, like, what my goal was and why I stopped doing it. Call it, like, my superhero year, like Harvey Picar's my cancer year or whatever. You should have auditioned for Stan Lee's You Want to Be a Superhero. No. I don't think I would have liked to do that. Anyway, so somebody asked for a story. There's a story. Didn't say it would be a great story. It was an interesting time, though, to say the least. Definitely had nights where did get into a fight, threw a punch, or, had a knife pulled on me. It was an interesting time. I'm making a manga and was wondering if you can evaluate my one-shot manga. I'm sorry. I really don't have time. People ask me literally about 5 times a week minimum if I can review their book. Like, they'll send me emails and messages and stuff. I just don't have time to review other people's works in progress or their indie comics. I'm sorry. That's not realistic. I just can't. I wish everybody success. It's just not realistic. Pitch the Omega comic to Kirkman. I don't know if he'd really be interested in that. I don't know if that's what Skybound would do. I'd have to think about that, because Skybound is not the same deal as Image either. Skybound, their point is they'll take a percentage of the ownership of your project, and in turn they have producers in Hollywood that can potentially help you develop the comic into, and I say Hollywood, but I mean in other mediums. It could be a game, it could be an actual book, it could be a TV show or a movie. But that's sort of Skybound's goal when they take somebody else's idea, is that, like, at Image, they don't take any ownership, and you just pay them, a flat fee if they accept, your book, and that goes towards, printing costs and some of the overhead. So yeah. What do you think about schools like Hubert's School and SCAD? I think that they're great. I know plenty of people that have gone there, and I think it makes them a more serious artist. It definitely teaches them not just skills, but a work ethic. Think, Mark, think. Do you think Omni-Man is supposed to look like Big Brother from 1984? No, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to look more like Tom Selleck. I'm pretty sure. Who would play you in a movie of Omega? It wouldn't, I don't know. I can't think of anyone that's, like, age appropriate that comes to mind. I don't know. Have you thought about doing a potential interview with Tony Moore, since you guys are close friends? That could be interesting. Yeah, I would love to do that. Maybe. It would really depend more on, like, maybe if Tony had something that he thought he'd like to promote at the time, make sure that it's good use to him, but I would love to talk to him about his work and all that. Yeah, like Tony's just he's an inspiration. He really is to me. I think he's just so ridiculously talented. Love Tony's work. Love it. At a certain point, like the people that became the biggest influences to me stopped being the comic book artists that I had, like, read comics of growing up, and it started to become these people that had become my friends, like Corey and Nate and Tony, and a bunch of others. Like, they just really, really did inspire me. Henry Cavill as Omni-Man. Now that's thinking outside the box. Yeah. Just go get that Superman footage where he has his mustache, and we can reuse it just as is. Is there a place or publisher, that I can submit my work even if I'm overseas? Yeah, I think, just check every publisher's website, and they should have submission guidelines. If it's complete and you've got a plan, I would say that, maybe look at some of the newer publishers like Vault and Scout. Is there a place where I can learn how to write comics? Same as you could learn to write anywhere. Yeah, like but you know what? Get some books on screenwriting. They'll teach you plenty about structure. There's a million of them out there. So consider something like that. And then there's also books on, like, writing comics. Like, literally look up that title. There are some books, like, with interviews by famous writers like Neil Gaiman, Bendis, and Frank Miller. So there's plenty of resources for learning how to write. And then you just need to keep in mind that comics is both a visual medium, and that it's like, works kind of like books do in terms of, like, how it uses time. You know what a helpful book would be? Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, just because it does teach you, like, how comics work. So I would definitely recommend reading that as well if you haven't. I think that should almost be essential reading if you want to make comics of any kind, like whether you're an artist or a writer or a letterer or anything. Yeah, that book, Save the Cat. Yeah, that's a good book. Like, just tells you how to, like, create, like, sympathy for your character. And the books will teach you structure, but they'll also teach you, like, what makes an interesting protagonist, how to make believable conflict that people can relate to, and what conflict is and why it's important, all that stuff. Any thoughts on how or if Discovery replacing AT&T and Warner partnership and how that might affect DC Comics? Just going to definitely lead to a reshuffling of executives. As far as, like, whether it means more money for DC Comics or less money, I don't know. That is interesting. Very, very unstable. I don't think it's going anywhere, so I'm not, like, worried about, like, the characters or anything, but it would be a pretty hectic time to have to be a DC employee these days. I'm sure that it does not feel stable. Superman versus Omni-Man? I'd give it to Superman. Superman has more powers, so he could potentially keep Omni-Man at bay from a distance. Yeah. Understanding Comics. Yeah, definitely read Understanding Comics. Who's the best Superman analog pastiche? Oh, like from another publisher, like somebody that sort of uses the Superman idea and runs with it? I mean, every publisher has one, Marvel has Hyperion, and of course there's Omni-Man through Skybound. I think it's been a while since I've read it, but like in Savage Dragon there was, like, maybe Solar Man, if I'm remembering right. Characters like, Homelander from The Boys are definitely sort of that idea. I don't know. Who's the best? I don't think anybody quite touches Superman, to be honest. Viltrumites don't need the sun or to breathe. They do need to breathe. They absolutely do need to breathe, actually. they don't need the sun for their powers. That's true, but the idea of, like, Superman doesn't get instantly depowered by being away from the sun. He soaks it up, and it's not going to be easy to keep him away from the sun for an extended period of time. Is there a long-running series over 100 issues that you would recommend getting into? Yeah, lots of them. Savage Dragon, Invincible, 20th Century Boys, Monster, Berserk, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, sort of, not really. What else has been going that long? I don't know. So I'd be curious to hear what other ones come to people's minds. That, like, one sort of creative team, one idea or something that's been going over 100 years. 100 years, 100 issues. Mark Tac sends a super chat. Thank you. Are there any films or books that you have read or seen that you think would make good comics? Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, some of them have been made into comics that I didn't necessarily think quite got it right. You'd think RoboCop, for instance, could make better comics than like, RoboCop seems like it's made for comics. Darkman seems like it's made for comics. Neither of them, in my opinion, had great comics, with the minor exception of Terminator versus RoboCop by Miller and Simonson. That's pretty cool, but that's sort of like a miniseries. I don't know Plutonian. People are asking a bunch of the same questions, so I'm sorry if I'm not, like, I don't want to repeat myself too much for anybody that's, like, been here for long. Yeah, it is sad about Kentaro Miura passing away. Very sad. I kind of already talked about it a bunch. Best horror comics that are not Junji Ito. Well, Walking Dead is up there. Other good horror comics, Tales from the Crypt and those things, like, Vault of Horror and stuff like that. The EC comics from the 50s, they're really good. Other good horror books. That's a good question. Horror is tricky in comics. It is. You can do creepy, you can do disturbing. It's hard to do a surprise. Which of the more street-level Marvel Comics heroes are my favorite? Spider-Man, Daredevil. Yeah. Oh, Gladiator. That's a good Superman copycat, yeah. How many years have you been drawing? I've always been drawing as long as I can remember, I wouldn't say that I always took it, like, seriously or anything, but I've always drawn. Like, there are all sorts of old things that the family has. Like, I didn't read comics until I was a little older, but I read comic strips, and I sort of invented a lot of my own comic books when I was young, without really knowing what they were, just sort of taking what I saw in comic strips and expanding it out. So they were like Garfield comics that I made, Pac-Man comics, and the one I did an episode about, I made like it was either 60 or 80 pages of a Transformers comic that I made when I was 10 years old. I don't know how I ever had the discipline to do that much, but if Jean is still there, she'll tell you, like, for a long time I was just drawing my own Transformers comic at age 10. My little sister would remember that. And it's not good, but it is kind of, whenever I look back, like, it's impressive just how much I made. It's very repetitive and derivative, but it is kind of funny. Don't forget Googly Guy. Yeah, that's right. I did a bunch of different comics. I had, like, a very simple sort of cartoon character, Googly Guy, and mostly he would just fall off cliffs or bombs would get thrown at him from off panel, and he would get sort of blown up. It was, stuff probably ripped off of Looney Tunes, basically, without knowing it. That's the stuff I found funny, was people falling off cliffs and getting exploded by bombs. Have I read the Resident Alien books? Yeah, actually I did. Somebody at my comic book shop recommended that to me back in the day. I haven't seen the show. I don't have cable. I have some streaming services, but I don't watch a ton of TV. I don't have cable. So I haven't seen the adaptation. I know Alan Tudyk stars in it, and he's good, but I haven't seen the adaptation. I just remember reading the comics about the alien who he disguises himself as a human doctor, right? I have to go. Thanks for stopping by, James. You ever read Ostrander's Grimjack? No. I think that was sort of when I was just getting into comics, and it just sort of eluded me. But I like Ostrander's what do you call it? Suicide Squad. That was the thing I discovered by him. Hopefully the next movie is a little more inspired by those comics, because I think John wrote some really great ones. Do you like the Ultraman series? You know what? I'm not super familiar with Ultraman, actually. No, don't know it too well. I do know that at least some of the covers of the new Marvel Ultraman series have been illustrated by my friend E.J. Sue, and he's doing great work. He's also got a Godzilla comic coming up where Godzilla battles Hedorah. So I'm excited for that, because I do like Godzilla a lot. But Ultraman isn't one that I've ever really gotten into. A little bit of a nerd hurl. Any manga series you're a big fan of? Lots, anything by Naoki Urasawa, I just consider genius. I also think anything by Osamu Tezuka I've always enjoyed. Anything by Katsuhiro Otomo I've always loved. And in more recent years, the things I've been reading have been like My Hero Academia, Berserk, little bit of One Piece. I kind of fell out of that. What else did I fall out of? Well, I haven't fallen out of it, but I'm still trying to read more of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, just because a lot of people wanted to hear my opinions on that one. So I'm still sort of learning about that weird world. That weird world. Greetings from Chile. Well, greetings from America. So now can we get a Scud the Disposable Assassin animated series? Should tweet that to Rob Schraub. It's 100% up to him. That would be great. What's confusing about the ending of the Akira manga? Any superhero webcomics that you would recommend? The only one I really know that well is Bullet, which is on Tapas. Oh, Blade of the Immortal. I actually really liked that one. XJ said he tried to read it. That's a manga that I read from beginning to end and liked a lot. Do I have plans on reviewing ElfQuest? I wouldn't say plans so much as it is something I'd like to discuss at some point. Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Any advice for a comic artist just trying to get going with self-publishing and stuff? I mean, just do it. Yeah, go for it. It's not rocket science, to be honest. Self-publishing, you just create the whole thing and then submit it to Diamond, I guess, to see. I say I guess because there's other distributors now, but submit it to Diamond, and if they accept it, they'll put it in the previews catalog. You'll know how many orders you get, and then you'll know how many to tell your printer to make. So it's kind of straightforward stuff if you decide to go that route. Well, thanks for joining F3R at L. Any plans on reading Transformers more than meets the eye? I wouldn't say I really have any plans. I loved Transformers growing up, but IDW puts out so many Transformers comics, I'd be stumped as to where to begin, and I haven't like really been engaged with that property since I was a kid, so I think a lot of the mythology would elude me. I probably wouldn't even know most of the characters these days. What is the most brutal thing you've seen in a comic book? Yeah, I guess anything from the new book Red Room by Ed Piskor through Fantagraphics. It's a book about torture on the dark web, so if you want something extreme, it's that. Are you reading any X-Men comics? I'm still reading the main Just X-Men book by Jonathan Hickman. I loved what he did with House of X, Powers of 10. I haven't really seen follow through in the main X-Men title of any of those like sort of big ideas, so it's sort of been losing me. I keep expecting it to pay off, and I know that sometimes that takes a while. I've been patient with Hickman before, and it's paid off with like his Avengers run leading up to Secret Wars. That was great. I loved that. I'm not really getting the same feeling out of X-Men though right now. I might be willing to bail on it. So who knows? Have you ever thought about doing any videos about Mike Allred's Madman? Sure. Big fan. I even have a piece of original art from some very early issues of Madman. Love Mike Allred's work. Like Madman quite a bit. Very funky. Very cool. I'm drawing Omni-Man, yeah. You thought I was drawing J.K. Simmons in a cape. I don't know that I necessarily went for a J.K. Simmons look, but yeah. It seems like the response to Invincible was really strong. I'm really happy for the whole team that worked on it, so... Very excited for seasons 2 and 3 and hopefully more, because there's plenty of story there. I'm very much looking forward to potentially things like the Invincible War, and that's one I really enjoyed. An arc. Does continuity even matter in Marvel Comics anymore? No, it's never really mattered much to me, to be honest. Maybe when I was very, very young. I think that people get hung up on it, and it's really lame. I'd rather just see good stories, and I don't care how it all connects to each other, and about it like taking place in a consistent universe. As though, like, what's the point? Like, how would that possibly matter? Just tell me a fictional story with these characters. Do whatever you want. Yeah. But not everybody agrees with that, and I'm just giving my 2 cents. I know I might be wrong. What's your favorite Ed Brubaker comic? Honestly, whatever he made most recently, it tends to become my favorite. Oh, that's so hard. Sleeper still stands out as fantastic. His run on Captain America is definitely my personal favorite run, and I don't say that lightly because I also like Jack Kirby's run in the 70s. And I really liked Mark Grunwald's run on Captain America growing up, but I like his crime comics more than anything, Brubaker's. And his last 2 Reckless books have both been great potboiler pulp detective stories. I really like seeing somebody just work the clues and put something together, and I don't know where it's going. It's great. I loved when you did the tropes challenge where you would drink or eat while proving tropes. I liked that too, but it also felt a little limiting in terms of how I could approach reviewing comics, so it sort of phased out over time. I'm not saying I'd never do it again. I it felt a little limiting to how I could approach a review. And I never really want to feel like I'm locked in or obligated to doing a review a certain way. So that's why they sort of phased out. I was surprised to hear that Invincible started out in the early 2000s. Yeah. Well, Ryan Ottley is the second artist, yes. Lance Barnes post-nuke Dick in the dollar bin from Eclipse. Oh yeah, Eclipse. No, I don't know that book, but Eclipse, I loved it in the 80s. There were so many interesting publishers doing like cool black and white comics. Thanks, Iron Shell. Appreciate the kind words. Ron Garney? Talented, yeah. Solid. Does angular stuff, good, but good solid storytelling. Good with spotting blacks and shadows. Isn't like beholden to style over substance. Like somewhat workmanlike. I mean, but really easy to read. So I like him. No, I didn't read Tom King's Rorschach. I don't have a lot of interest in reading anything that, like, you know, sort of just mines from Watchmen. Just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. I've really enjoyed your Comic Tropes channel and the streams you've been doing recently. What do you do with the pictures you draw? Nothing. They just sort of end up in a stack, and I guess at some point I probably recycle them. Yeah. No, I've never read the Pokemon Adventures manga. I've never read any Pokemon stories, no. I know the Pokemon games. I actually do really tremendously enjoy the... I got Pokemon Snap on Nintendo Switch. And while I don't have lots of times for video games, that is one that I've been playing when I have time, and I really like it. I really like it. Recycle as in throw them away? Yeah, I mean, you know, hopefully I'm always improving. There's not much to do with old art, you know. Turns into scrap pieces of paper that I take notes for like bills and stuff on and eventually throw it out. I did hear that they're making an Injustice animated movie. Have to admit, I've never played those games or read any of the comics based on it. Chris, you have a guest. Hey! That's my kitty, Little Bean. Little Bean, you want to show up on the show? People noticed you. You want to show up? He's looking at me, but he won't come over here. Everyone should learn from Invincible. Comic adaptations work better in animation than live action. Well, it depends. But yeah, they're doing a great job. I did read X-Men Grand Design. It was fun. It was fun to sort of go back and sell them or do giveaways. You know, the problem with giveaways for me is just I hate going to the post office and I hate packaging it up and doing that. So it like just costs me a lot of time. If I had like an assistant or something, I'd do that in a second. But it's a pain in the ass to mail stuff. I hate it. Hey, Little Bean, you want to come here? I do that kiss sound because he likes it. He always looks at me. Care Bear, I want to watch Invincible, but I can't afford a streaming service. Oh, okay. Amazon Prime isn't much, I don't think, but I understand. I don't have an opinion on the new DC animations. Sorry, I haven't seen them, so don't have an opinion. I'm going to use this kneaded eraser to clean up some of the lingering pencil stuff here. Yeah, I read Alan Moore's 1963 at Image. It was charming. It was funny. It was unique and exciting. But am I remembering right that it was unfinished? Like I don't remember an end to that series. now that you bring it up. Hadn't thought about it in a while. Can't wait for the new animated Batman series. Yeah, that could be good. So could the upcoming animated Superman series. So, like, I guess HBO Max is getting both of those. That could be good. That could be cool. Try to clean this up a little bit, make it look a little more appealing. Yeah, that looks a little better already. If you got space, it might be really cool if you kept some of your stuff and did an overview of some of your favorite pieces. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there'd be enough of an audience for that. It feels a little like stroking my ego if I just sort of like reviewed or just recapped some of the stuff that I drew. Like, it's a little different when I did a special episode looking at like the Transformers comic I did when I was 10 years old, because you've got like a lot of space in between like when I did it and now, so I could be a little more objective. Simpsons comics review. Yeah, I remember Simpsons comics. I definitely read a few of them early on when they first started, but it's been a long time. Found out my comic shop sells Bristol board with the lines up and everything. Now to find out about bleed areas and all of that. Well, it's going to depend on the publisher. Like, they're all going to be a little different, to be honest. Or they could be. My videos are great already. However, can you improve the voice quality in upcoming videos? I mean, eventually. I'm always trying to improve, but I know comics, and I know writing an essay, and I know public speaking. I even think that I know editing to a degree. Do I know cameras? Do I know the technical side of setting up, cameras and lighting and audio equipment? That is a big challenge for me. I am not an expert there. I really wish that was something I knew better for all of you. I'm always trying to learn a little bit more. All I can say is I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying. Do you enjoy other forms of media? No, only comics. Yeah, of course I do. I mean, everybody listens to music or watches movies, right? I mean, I like plays and musicals and everything. I mean, I think that if you only follow primarily one medium, it's going to become inbred. You're just not going to have inspiration or the depth to appreciate like references and where it's pulling stuff from. So whether you're reading or creating, I definitely think it's important to have other areas of inspiration. But comics is my favorite. I just find it the most versatile and engaging. So I like comics a lot. But yeah, I definitely love going to the movies, especially. Big fan of that. Wish I could do it more. Anybody excited for any upcoming movies, actually? I haven't seen a good horror movie in a while, like at least in the theater. Like that would mean a lot to me to go see a good horror movie. I like horror. I can only imagine the confusion if they had gone through with calling Omni-Man Supraman. Yeah, that wouldn't have worked as well. That wouldn't have worked. Can you watch the 1954 Godzilla? I can. I have a I have the Criterion Blu-ray collection of the Showa era Godzilla movies, so I definitely can watch that. I love it. It's fantastic. I'm going to be doing a Patreon exclusive video soon that really isn't exactly comics. It's just something weird that I want to do, so I'm just giving it to my patrons for and that's a review of the final episode of the sitcom Webster, which I know sounds weird, but what it was it was a crossover with Star Trek The Next Generation. Webster literally transported onto the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, and they did an episode with like him and Worf talking about like Earth customs and stuff. Just an utterly bizarre way to end a sitcom. And you'd think like, oh, well, that means like it's a dream or something. No, like he literally gets transported to the Enterprise, talks with Worf a bunch. It's like a clip show of like the whole series because it's the final episode of the show. And when he gets back, he has souvenirs from his time visiting the Enterprise. It's so crazy. I think your channel is really cool. Well, thanks, Eli. I think that compliment is really cool. You know who can do devastated buildings better than I think anyone else? Katsuhiro Otomo. Oh my god. The buildings that he draws, the rubble and devastation, but like the intricate architectural detail that he puts into Akira. Mind-blowing stuff. Just so gorgeous to look at, like all these buildings that are like, you know, like have different types of devastation done to them. Just some of the most beautiful artwork in comics I've seen. I love it. I adore it. So good. Hey, I'm curious about something, and I'd love to hear your honest opinion. If I did a cover for a comic book, just the cover, like a variant cover, is that something that you would go and pick up if I just did a variant cover for like a comic book, even if it wasn't a book that you already read? I'd be curious because I have talked to 2 different places about potentially doing something like that. And then there's a third that I'd like to potentially do, but I don't know. I'd be very curious to hear, like, if that's something, you know, as a viewer of this show, would you go out of your way to pick something like that up if I drew a cover to a comic book, but you weren't already reading that comic book? And I need honest answers. If you don't buy comics or anything, like, you know, you can tell me. That's a lot of yeses so far. Even my sister, and I know she doesn't go out and buy comics. You'd buy a variant cover. That's interesting. That's very encouraging. This isn't scientific. I'm asking the most dedicated people of my audience, you guys, because you came to a live stream. Like, you know, but it is nice. Thank you. These are good responses. That's a lot of yeses. That helps. All right, it's something I will definitely strongly consider if that offer, you know, sounds like, you know, is real, and it sounds like it's something I could actually do a good job on or something. I would approach it like with more care than what I'm doing in these live streams. You got to understand that in these live streams, I mean, I am trying, but I'm also like, you know, I'm talking to an audience and answering questions while I'm doing it. I'm not exactly 100% focused on it. I'm kind of playing with techniques too, things that if it screws up, it's okay because, you know, I just need to try something. Whereas like if I was doing a cover, I'd probably stick with what I know how to produce. So that's interesting. I don't think I could get it near me, but you should go for it. Well, we'll see. If you could buy online. What I'm what I really need to figure out, my background's all in marketing, so I'm like big heavy into doing research before a decision is made, you know? And I'd want to be sure that like I was adding true value to the publisher, like that they would sell a certain amount of comics if they in fact hired me to do something like that. I'd want to be sure that I was adding value to them. But thanks for the kind words, everyone. That means a lot to me. That's really useful info. We'll see what happens. You're working on your own comic as a hobby. I just say put it out there, finish it. Like, you know, don't do a draft, do a touch up of the draft. You know, in terms of a script I'm talking about. You know, map out your thumbnails or storyboards, whatever you want to call it, and do it, and just finish it. Don't like try to keep going back and perfecting it or dawdle. Just get something out there. Yeah. Glad I could catch the stream this time. Well, so am I, Josh. Thanks. What's your biggest inspiration? Just in general? Wow. My biggest inspiration, keeping a roof over my head. I'm inspired to work and have money. Wow. My biggest inspiration, like artistically, you know, it changes. I don't feel like I can like commit to saying like it's any one thing that's like an easy to define formula. I wish I could, but it's really not quite that easy. Different things inspire me at different times. That's the simplest thing I can say. Would you ever consider doing a video on Scotty Young? Asks Sarah. I would consider it. Yeah, I would consider that. He's doing a horror book. That interests me a little bit. Yeah, that interests me. If he's the person that I'm thinking of, I know that there was an artist when I was living in not quite Boston, Somerville, technically, just north of Boston, and working in Boston. This would have been in the late 90s into the early 2000s. I would walk to a bus stop, and I passed a house where an artist had illustrated their entire front door, and I'm 85% sure it was Scotty Young. I wonder if he's from Boston. If he's from Boston, I definitely walked past his house on my way to work, because it looked like his artwork, but he was like up and coming. He wasn't somebody that was doing main stuff. I think it was Scotty Young. Talk to Ed Piskor and do a variant for his Red Room. That's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. Well, it's 100% up to Ed and Fantagraphics if they saw value in something like that. But I would definitely be interested in doing something like that. I think that I could bring in some more readers for him. You know what? Look, if I'm flattering myself, I do like to think that my interview with him helped with some of the pre-orders. I don't know that for a fact, obviously, but I know that they were strong at that time, and it couldn't have hurt. But I think it probably helped. Don't know. Your family's from Somerville? Nice. What comics YouTuber do you watch? You know what? I try not to watch much other comic YouTube stuff because I don't want to have my opinion on something that I'm going to do as a topic influenced by somebody else. But I watch a little. Depending on what they do. I do watch some cartoonist kayfabe with Ed and Jim, especially in the early days when they would like talk about like Wizard magazine, because that was like not what I was going to do. So like that was cool. I've watched some essays by Matt Draper, especially if he does a movie instead of a comic. I definitely watch him. Other guys, you know, like I talk to some of the other guys. I talk to Comic Drake and Owen Likes Comics. Who else? I'm going to forget if I start listing them. I'm sorry if I didn't already list you. If we talk, you know that we talk. And I'll watch some of their stuff, but on a very limited basis. If it's already something that I've covered, or if it's something that I don't think I'll cover, then I'll watch them to see like how other people approach comics. But I don't watch a lot of comic book YouTube. I don't watch much of the guys like Comics Explained or Comicstorian. I've talked to Benny from Comicstorian once or twice, and he's a great guy, it seems. But that's just a very different thing than what I try to do with my channel. So I don't really watch that. Yeah. But have you watched some of Linkara, early YouTube critic culture? Oh, Linkara. I've seen a little bit of Linkara. He more tries to find just a bad comic, or at least a comic that he can make jokes about and like do sort of silly voices. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff. It's not bad. It just it's not exactly what interests me, even though I know that sometimes I also will review a sort of weird comic and try to make jokes. So you'd sort of think, well, what's the difference? And I'm not sure what the difference is. Would I do a crossover with Matt Draper? Would I do a crossover with Comic Drake? Potentially. I don't know what we could do that would, like, excite both of our audiences, or be appropriate for, like, one channel versus the other channel. But if I had an excuse to work with either of those guys, I would. Just to be clear, last year we did the at-home Comic-Con, and we're all planning on doing that again, which is just a series of panels. I haven't pitched this to anyone yet that's doing the at-home Comic-Con, but I think that a good panel would be, let's do a role-playing game session with a bunch of us hosts playing, like, we could play like the Ninja Turtles role-playing game, or Heroes Unlimited or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool, personally. What do you think of that? Like, maybe not Dungeons and Dragons, but a superhero or comic book related role-playing game. I don't know if that would need to be an hour or 2 hours, but I think that could make a really funny panel, seeing like guys like me and some of the guys you were just talking about, like Matt Draper and Comic Drake and etc. I think that would be funny. Favorite hot toy that you own? I'm just looking at some of them right now to try to decide. That's a cool question. I collect the Marvel Comics Universe hot toys. I would say towards the high end of what I've got. You know what? Surprisingly, Ant-Man is a super well done one. It comes with like a micro figure version of himself. His helmet like flips up and lights up and stuff. Actually, Star-Lord also has some light up features that are fantastic. Thanos is a great sculpt. That one's really good. In terms of like, really elaborate like clothing, the Doctor Strange one has really great clothing. So those are some of my favorites. Am I looking forward to the strange death of Alex Raymond? Potentially, yeah. I have conflicted opinions about Dave Sim, but it is an interesting idea for a comic, and yeah, I'm curious. I'm very curious. Have you seen the trailer for the new upcoming Konami-esque Ninja Turtles game? I did. It looked fun. I love the Ninja Turtles, man. It doesn't take much for me to get excited about Ninja Turtles. So, yeah. Love Ninja Turtles. There's a book that, like, if I don't get super excited necessarily about working on some of my favorite characters, like, Spider-Man or Batman. I would rather sort of do my own thing. But if I could work on an existing property, Ninja Turtles is one that would really excite me. Like, Ninja Turtles, just because I grew up with it, you know, not exactly like from when I was real little, but I discovered it when it was early on. You know, it was still the 80s. It was still pre the first cartoon when I discovered Ninja Turtles. So Ninja Turtles is a book that's always excited me and amused me, and I've liked the adaptations generally, not always, but like Ninja Turtles is something that, like, if I ever had an opportunity, I don't know how that would happen, to be honest, but like that's one that I would like to write a story for. Yeah, I'm sure I could come up with something different for it. Who knows? That's an interesting question, though. Okay, I love more the idea of, like, you know, doing my own comic, but if you out there watching this could choose an existing property to write or draw, you know, work on, what's the one, just one, existing comic book title you would want to work on? It doesn't have to be being published right now. It just has to have been published at some point in time. What would you want to work on? Hello, Cody. You just came in. Yes, we talked about Berserk earlier, and I have read a bunch of it. Not all. Not to the very end. Not to the very end. Glad I survived. Thank you. That's really kind of you. Gurihiru, good artist. Only thing I'm super familiar, though, is from reading Superman versus the Klan, or what was it? Superman Smashes the Klan, which I liked. But that's the only thing so far of Gurihiru's work that I know. Be interesting to see somebody with that style take a crack at something kind of grounded, like Shang-Chi. Okay, let's see. Conan, martial law, or Cerebus. You could do Cerebus. That's allowed. You can do that. Spider-Man, Crimson Chin. I don't know Crimson Chin. Deadpool, Doom Patrol, Guardians of the Galaxy. Not an existing comic, but it's in the spirit. I'd love to adapt Moby Dick. Very ambitious, Jason. Very ambitious. Yeah. I would say that, like, my first choice would probably be what was I just saying? My first choice would probably be Ninja Turtles, but after that, I too would probably like to come up with an idea for somebody like Spider-Man. I think that I could do that. Captain Marvel, yeah. Santa conquers the Klan. Well, there you go. Ghost Rider in the 70s, where he's fighting Manson-era cultists. Yeah, that's a fun idea. Although you could probably still do that today with like a 70s flair, if like, you know, Marvel wanted to just keep it set today. That's a good idea. Transmetropolitan. Let's see. Coming up in an hour and a half that I've been doodling this. I know what I could do. Why don't I try to color this? I think that could be fun. Yeah, I'll color this. Crimson Chin is from Very Odd Parents. Don't know that. Sorry to hear you're so upset, Wolf. I totally understand. Oh, Strike Force Morituri. Oh man, what an underrated comic. I'm glad I did an episode on it. Now there's a property that needs to be turned into like a TV show. Strike Force Morituri would be incredible on something like, you know, HBO Max or something like that. Like, you know, something with a budget. Like, just what a premise. What a premise. You get turned into a superhero, but you're going to die within a year tops. But you're willing to do it to protect humanity. I get it. It's just, and you don't know what power you'll get, and you don't know exactly when you'll die. You'll be beloved as a celebrity for the short time you're here. Ah, so cool. You think you will do a review of Godzilla 1954 on the channel or on Patreon? No, I don't think so. I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out because I love it so much, but I don't know. Matt Draper recently reviewed both the Showa era Godzilla movies and the Heisei era Godzilla movies. So, in the meantime, while I try to make up my mind about something like that, I'd recommend checking out his analysis there. I also think that the Angry Video Game Nerd years ago did a great review of each of the Godzilla movies, like in brief. So they're out there already. There's some good reviews out there already of that material. Did you hear about how the Defenders are getting an ongoing by Al Ewing and Javier Rodriguez? I didn't know that. But that's a good team. Boy, has Al Ewing impressed me with Immortal Hulk. Really, really impressed me. Would you ever go for a beer with Vince Coletta if he was still alive? If he didn't have me killed because of the episode, of course I would. The stories he could tell. Of course I would. No question. This is fun to draw, but I bet Corey or Ryan would probably kill me for how badly I've butchered their character, Doing the best I can, guys. Doing the best I can. Holy moly, you're amazing. Schwanky, we think you're amazing. Thank you for the kind words. That's really sweet of you. I love black and white comics. There were many indie 80s comics that way. Yeah, Matthew, I totally agree. Man, I discovered comics in the 80s, and there were so many great indie comics in the 80s that were black and white. Of course, some of the ones that we still remember today are like Ninja Turtles, maybe Cerebus, definitely Usagi Yojimbo, The Tick. But there were a bunch more that, what a time. I don't know if it was always black and white. I know it became color for most of its run. Boris the Bear was pretty funny, at least early on. Boy, I can't even remember all the black and white comics I discovered at the time. Concrete, that might have been going into the 90s, but so many good ones. Ever read the Sam and Max comics or play the games? Not the comics, no. But I do admire Steve Purcell, the creator. He definitely has a style that's completely in control, completely his own. I've seen some of, I've read some bits of it, and he seems to have a really good sense of humor. I love black and white comics. It's cool what we can do with color, but I don't need it. There's so many manga that I enjoy that I don't really feel I need to see in color. Walking Dead, for recent American books was great, even if it was black and white. So I'm a huge fan of really well done black and white. Here's the caveat: it can't always just be real open line art. Oh, The Crow was another one I liked back in the day. And there used to be black and white Marvel magazines for things like Hulk and Conan. They used to produce black and white magazines that were a little more mature. They were great. I think that they did a Master of Kung Fu one. Maybe it was called Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. It's hard to remember now off the top of my head. I just need, in the black and white, I need a little bit of screen toning, or just a hell of a lot of shading somehow, whether that's even just spotting deep blacks or lots of hatching and cross hatching. I need something like that to break the pages up. So I do need that. Wow, super chat. Did you catch up on Jeff Johns Geiger? I didn't read that one, Magic K. I know that a lot of people like Jeff Johns' work. It has never really appealed to me that much. So I did not pick up Geiger. I know it did well. I know that, like, the first issue sold out right away. But I've just never really come across a Jeff Johns comic that I've enjoyed. So I didn't pick that one up, unfortunately. Thanks for the super chat, though. That means a lot to me. It means a lot. Oh, especially because, oh, Jesus. So this is like such a lame thing to complain about, but I did better on YouTube this past year than I realized. I wasn't keeping track, and I did pretty well. And that's nice, right? Yes and no. I just had to do my taxes. I waited until the end because I knew I'd owe money, but I didn't know how much I'd owe. I owed a fortune because I hadn't set aside money for the fact that YouTube doesn't take out taxes, and some of the Patreon stuff isn't taken out in taxes, so I owed taxes on all that stuff. So I know I'm complaining about being sort of successful, which sounds lame, but it's painful. I owed an insane amount that it just hurts. It hurts. I had to give up a lot of money, and I didn't have it all because it was so much. I had to put it on my credit card so that I don't the IRS. I feel so dumb. I'm definitely going to be more careful of looking at how much I need to set aside throughout the year, or paying quarterly. But folks, I literally have no money now. I'm completely in debt because I spent all my money paying this insane tax bill that I got this year. It really hurt. It's nice that it was successful. Obviously, I had that money. I just didn't realize how much money I'd been earning that didn't have taxes pulled out. So I feel dumb. I definitely feel dumb. But I didn't want to owe taxes and to the government. That's not a good place to be. So anyway, I owe an absolute fortune. It's so frustrating. Definition of a millionaire: a billionaire after taxes. Yeah. I've read Ultra Mega 1 and 2. Issue 3 didn't come into my store on time, so it will be pulled for me when it comes in, but it isn't in yet. So, yeah. You should put your money offshore. Jesus, I wouldn't even know where to begin on something like that. Hey, just wanted to stop by and say I love the show and buy you a coffee. Well, thank you, John. Perhaps you'd be okay with me, instead of getting a coffee, using that money to pay down my credit card bill so that the IRS didn't arrest me. No, that's super kind of you. Super, super kind. Leo Convoy. Cool name, by the way. And just stopping by to say that I love your channel and hope you're doing well. I can't give you a lot, but I hope this helps. It does. Right now, it really does. Thank you. That's so sweet of you. That's amazing. Leo Convoy. That's... Convoy is the name for what do you call it? Optimus Prime over in Japan. Leo Convoy was what was it? It was the rebuilt form of who? Oh, I'm trying to remember. Just do quarterly taxes. Yeah, you would know best, Gene. I know you had sort of your own business for a while and you did quarterly, so that's what I need to do so that I don't get a huge bill. Do you read digital? Not much. I read one or two web comics. I'll float around the Tapas website to look at web comics here and there. That's about it. Beast Wars 2. Is that what... see, I remember Leo Convoy from Super God Master Force. I watched the Japanese seasons of Transformers after it ended here. The same continuity continued in Japan for another 3+ years. And there was a Leo Convoy there. But he was he was a rebuilt form of somebody, and I'm forgetting who it was. Yeah, that makes sense that it was from Beast Wars 2. But Leo... Who was Leo Convoy? Oh, it's going to drive me nuts that I can't remember. What do you think of artists going back and revising their work? I know Brian Lee O'Malley would redraw faces in Scott Pilgrim, and The Crow seems like it has something new each printing. Yeah, for comics it doesn't drive me too nuts, especially if it's just sort of art, but it does sort of bother me for like movies, I will admit. Like I have a really hard time. I can't really enjoy, to be honest, the Star Wars special editions. They drive me nuts. I'm like, this isn't what I grew up with, and I liked what I grew up with. You're thinking about Victory Leo, the rebuilt Ginrai. Thank you. That is who I'm thinking about. Victory Leo, not Leo Convoy. Thank you for the correction, Leo. I liked Ginrai. And I'm thinking of, that was from Victory, right. That wasn't from Super God Master Force. That was from Victory, I believe. Which I think is probably my favorite of the 3 seasons, the Victory season. It definitely had the best theme song. The original Transformers theme song's catchy. We all know it, like, more than meets the eye. Look up Transformers Victory theme song. It's so catchy. Victory, Transformer Victory, Victory. Transforma Victory. It's really catchy. I know that my singing was not. You have my sincerest apologies. Name an event in the 90s for Marvel that really mattered or wasn't ridiculous that isn't a Spider-Man or X-Men comic. Oh, if we're subtracting the X-Men comics, that's hard. I had this conversation with my brother and I can't think of one. I wouldn't say it mattered, but Acts of Vengeance was fun. Acts of Vengeance was fun and not like a complete botch. Hello, Eva. Victory Saber is awesome. The song is stuck in my head for a while. It's good. My sister says my singing was awful. She's allowed to think that. She's wrong, but she's allowed to think that. You have Star Saber, Victory, Leo, and Deathsaurus. Oh, wow. Congrats. Hey, look at that. 500 yen. Somebody from Japan is watching? Thanks for the stream, my dude. What would you usually eat for lunches? It's lunchtime here. I will usually... Oh, yeah. Care Bear's thinking about the Japanese theme song for Spider-Man. Spider-Man. Oh, my God. That's such a funky, jazzy thing. Holly Wonwo. For lunch, I almost always will either just have a very basic house salad with chicken, or potentially like a no carb or low carb protein bar. Pretty mundane. I count my carbs and sugars so that like during dinner I can have a little bit more fun. So like breakfast and lunch are really basic. You liked Identity Crisis. I liked the idea of it, but I didn't really like the execution too much. My sister used to sometimes color the stuff that I would draw. She did a good job. I like that, Gene. You missed I missed your super chat, Mandela? Oh, Jesus. I'm so sorry. Mandela, you don't have to pay again. Just tell me what you asked. I'm looking. Mandela, like, I'm sorry I missed it. Just if you wouldn't mind saying it again, I'd love to look at that. Leo, that's so kind of you. I have to admit, I really haven't like kept up with Transformers since I was a kid. So it would be a very short conversation if we talked Transformers. You almost definitely know a lot more than I do. I was really into it when it came out. I was a kid, and it was my favorite thing. It was my favorite toy line, and I that's it. Yeah. I know people like are sort of divided on my episode about Kiss players, but personally, I had a blast doing that. Like that to me was hilarious. Talking about that crazy comic. I would love to see a well orchestrated Clone Saga. Well, for that, I would say that the Ultimate Spider-Man comics did a much more condensed version, and they gave us Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, as a clone of Peter Parker, and that was kind of a cool twist on things. So I kind of liked that. The Ultimate Comics did a decent version of it. Mandela asked, what is my favorite 70s superhero cartoon? Oh, wow. I would have only seen it as reruns, basically, first of all. And let me just pause to say, John, that is an adorable animated GIF super chat. Some sort of samurai Inu hugging a trophy. I have type 2 diabetes, Fujiwara. My favorite 70s superhero cartoon would 70s, because if it was 60s, I'd go with Spider-Man, but that was 60s. 70s trying to like think through like all the characters like Superman and Batman. Super Friends went into the 70s, didn't it? So I sort of liked that, and then I liked there was some Hanna-Barbera stuff I think I liked, but I'm trying to like think. Was my favorite Transformer? In terms of character, it was Optimus Prime. In terms of toy, it was probably Soundwave. What else did I like for 70s stuff? I didn't expect this to be hard, but it is. It's quite hard. I'm totally stumped. I'm utterly, totally stumped as to like a 70s superhero thing that I liked. Gleep. Has anyone done a steampunk version of Star Trek? Probably. Nothing comes to mind. Yeah, the live action Incredible Hulk show was good for 70s, but for animated, I think that like all I can think of is that there was some Hanna-Barbera stuff. What was the Herculoids? I think that was 70s. If that's 70s, I'm going to go with Herculoids. If it isn't 70s, then I'm stumped again. Cool question. If you were to write a comic storyline for Marvel, DC, and Image, what would you do? Wait, like you're saying like if I had to cross over all three? Because that one would require quite a bit of planning. That feels more like a math problem almost that I'd have to figure out. If you're saying like, one from each, that also would require me to think for quite a while. Space Ghost or Birdman. Birdman did amuse me as a kid. Birdman! Bird boy! So dumb. Thanks for the tough questions, though, people. I like thinking. It just slows me down. I missed most of the 70s, being in the crib towards the end of it. Yeah, I was really, really young then too, but I caught some reruns growing up. Oh, I don't know if this counts as superhero, but in the 70s there was Guy King, a friend of mine, like when we were super young, was really into that Japanese robot show, Guy King, and I remember liking that as a kid. Underdog. Yep. Did you like Underdog, Jeannie? I really don't remember. There was who? There was like some really like bad superheroes, like as in like they had bad powers and they weren't very good at their job. There was like Diaper Man and Rope Man, Tornado Man. What was that called? That was funny. How come Manimal never took off? Probably just didn't have like the special effects that were required to excite people at the time. Are there any comedic comic books you'd recommend? Yeah, anything by Kate Beaton. I like that stuff with Bertato. I like the Perry Bible Fellowship. Those are all books that make me laugh a lot. Have you ever heard of Spider-Man Fake Red, a Spider-Man manga? I've heard of the Spider-Man manga, but I haven't heard of Spider-Man Fake Red, no. Starman, the live-action Japanese show. No, Eva, I don't know that one. That's interesting. I don't know that one at all. That's news to me. I'm going to go on a brief vacation soon, so I'm trying to get the episodes for like this funny one that I'm doing, and then like the one for Berserk out before I go on my trip. That's my hope, so that I can actually sort of like take about a week off and enjoy it. I'll be up in New England visiting my family. I'm very excited about that. Very excited. Haven't seen them in a long time. What do you think of the Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane comic series? That was actually pretty cool a lot of the time. Like, had good art. Some of the covers are always like, her trying to either get married or something like that, which is a little lame, but had good art, and it was kind of cool. And it introduced this character Thorn, who is a DC superheroine that like just does not get used much. She's really cool. Thorn. She's got an attitude and stuff. Let's see. I'm trying to look and see what kind of muted but dark, or I should say cool colors that I have, and I don't have a lot, or possibly any. I was going to try to do like the background in like a single muted color, and then I could add details later, but I don't really see anything for it, so I guess that's where I'll leave my art for the day and take off in a sec. But if anybody has any more questions or anything that would prompt an interesting discussion, hit me now. I'll try to answer a few questions, and then I'm going to take off because I'm thinking of the Mighty Heroes. Yeah, that was a funny show. Have I watched any of Marvel's old live action? Yeah, I mean, I grew up with, like, the Hulk. Saw some of the TV movies of Captain America. Those weren't so good. Although the second one had Christopher Lee, who's awesome. But Reb Brown made for a pretty bland Captain America. The Hulk show was okay. For its time, like, it rarely had, like, Hulk doing anything that strong. But it was alright. What else did they have? Not much. Thoughts on The Incredibles? Loved that first movie. Saw the second one and liked it at the time, but don't remember it at all, so it was pretty forgettable. What do you think is the most important part of Spider-Man to get right? His look, I guess. His costume. I think that it's an iconic costume, so you got to get the costume right first. And then some sort of weird spider powers. And then, for the character, I think the most important thing is his overriding sense of responsibility. No, I didn't watch Battle of the Planets. My favorite legacy characters? Miles Morales for sure. I like Miles Morales. If it counts, I would say that Kamala Khan, which is Ms. Marvel. So I would say Kamala Khan is also up there. Wally West is fantastic. So those are some of my favorite legacy characters. Thoughts on Jensen Ackles joining the boys? Love it. Jensen Ackles is fantastic. My favorite part of Supernatural. He can be really funny. It's amazing, like, that he did Supernatural as long as he did, like 15 years. It's amazing. Still looks pretty young. And then, of course, the boys' showrunner is the creator of Supernatural. He did that for 5 years. So, like, you know, it's cool to see them reunite. It's very cool. Are they calling you the Adam West of Invincible yet? And how much did you coach Steven Yeun on his performance? No, I take no credit for that. I wish I could do a voice on Invincible. I don't. If I asked Robert, I'm pretty sure he'd say no, so I'd rather just not ask. But I would love to somehow do like a voice. For instance, like Justin Roiland just, you know, voiced a dude bro character on an episode of that because Justin and Kirkman became buddies. I would love to do something like that, like a background character that just has a line or two. Oh my god, that would mean the world to me. I would love to do voices. I don't know how to break in, like, not living in Hollywood. I don't know how to do that. But I would love to do voices. Voice work. I think I could do that. Give me some. If anybody wants to throw out an impression, watch me nail it. Over 100%. You'd be like, 100%? That's perfect. What's more than 100%? Doing it better than what you expected perfect to be. You played Invincible first. That's okay, yeah. But all I was doing there was some sort of weird whiny voice, like, oh yeah, I'm invincible. Right, that's right. I did do a review of Invincible back in the day, and I did a voice for Invincible in it. Many years before there was a cartoon. Just send him voiceover of you screaming and ask to layer it in. No. JFK impression? I like these comic books. I believe that everybody should read Invincible. How much do you think you'd charge for a VA? What's a VA? Just a background character whose only line is a scream of pain as he dies. Okay, that reminds me of something. Oh, hold on. I'm going to miss some of these requests because it reminded me of a voice that I did one time. I sell cars, right? One day, a guy was coming to buy a car, and his license had like a restriction. He wasn't allowed to test drive the car that he wanted to buy. He had his grandmother with him. She was willing to do the test drive so that they could get a sense of the vehicle. So she did it. The car was a sports car. Sits really low to the ground. She wasn't that old, but when they came back, she was having trouble like getting up out of the seat, and you know, I came over to talk to them, and she was like, help me, and like, you know, her grandson grabs her arms, and I just remember her going like, making this sound as she was getting pulled out. She went like, oh. I'm sorry, it was just too funny in the moment. It was just like this lady like trying to help, and she just like was struggling to get out and just going, oh. Please do an impression, this is Chrissy, of Sly Stallone doing an impression of Scooby-Doo. Okay. Hey, Shaggy, it's me, Scooby. Where are my Scooby snacks? Where are my Scooby snacks? My video of Lisa. Yeah, that had some weird voices, right? Let's see. Batman impression. Okay. these fiends. There are clues here, Commissioner, that we can use to figure out who committed this crime. For instance, it took place at sea. C for Catwoman. Catwoman is behind this most insidious crime. Perfect. Perfect! Hey, Rutrow. It's me, Scooby. I don't know Thundar the Barbarian. I never saw that one, so I don't know what his voice sounds like. I imagine it's something like this. It's me, Thundar. I'm here to be thundering. Marge Simpson, I don't know if I could really do a good female voice. Probably every female voice I do would sound the same. Oh, homie. I can't do it. I just cracked myself up with that. I'm sorry. Another 70s Defenders ep? I would consider doing that, yeah. Would you ever write a crossover event with Marvel and DC? Not up to me. If it was offered to me, of course I would do it. Of course I would do it. Who is worse, Omni-Man or Homelander? Homelander. Omni-Man has a completely different... He's an alien. And he views humans in a different way. He does view himself literally as superior the same way we view ourselves as superior to other animals. It's not right. He's lived among us. He should know better. But he's doing this out of a displaced sense of loyalty. Omni-Man has issues, but Homelander is just a sociopath. Venom impression. I don't know what Venom's supposed to sound like. So I'll just make Venom sound like Tom Hardy as Bane. You're merely given radioactive spider powers. I was born with them. Perfect. Walken. Christopher Walken. Looks like I'm getting a little bit of a hiccup with my stream. For some reason, looks like I'm losing the signal. Oh, that's awful. I'm sorry. Marge Simpson impression will mess up your voice. Yes. Favorite Top Cow title? The first one. I liked Cyberforce. It didn't last long enough. I liked Cyberforce. Do an impression of Marge Simpson doing an impression of Bane. Oh, homie, it's me, Bane. Yeah, I saw the Venom movie. It was better than I expected it to be. Not great. I wish Venom actually looked like Venom with the symbol and stuff, but I guess if he's not connected to Spider-Man, it doesn't make sense. I don't know. Woody Allen voicing Wolverine. Hey, bub. Get out of my way. Venom impression was genius. Of course it was. I told you. Over 100%. Over 100%. Rick from Walking Dead. Coral. Coral. You gotta understand, Coral. You got to understand, me son. We is chimney sweeps, Coral. Oh, I can't do impressions. I can't. Thank you for putting up with this. You guys, I'm torturing you all. I'm torturing you. And some of you are paying me for it. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you. Jar Jar Binks, but it's actually Bane. Oh, Misa go blow up the bridge and trap you in the Gotham. Oh, you some people gonna die. No, brother, they expect us, one of us, to be in the wreckage of the plane. I'm trying. That fight at the end of Venom was visually undecipherable. You know, that is the biggest problem that superhero movies face, is like trying to spend all their money on like big special effects for a final battle, but not having it storyboarded in a coherent way. And we can tell when something is a special effect versus like a real stunt or a real fight. So it's very easy for that to get away from you. It's amazing that something to me like, you know, Avengers Endgame had like, you know, all the superheroes versus Thanos and all of his minions. And yet somehow to me that was coherent and interesting. Maybe it was just seeing all the characters on screen. I don't know, but it worked for me to a large extent. But most of the time, a movie that I otherwise enjoy, like the first Wonder Woman, that fight with Ares is kind of like visual nonsense. Batman versus Superman, I didn't really care for that movie, but the fight with Doomsday is just incoherent nonsense. Or Transformers movies, you might as well just pick up the silverware from your cabinet and just throw it down the stairs, and that's the same thing you get to see. An impression of Batman mocking Bane. Your venom supply seems to have run out, chum. I don't know. I am planning on doing a video on Berserk. First, I'm going to do what I consider a funny episode, and then I'm going to do one on Berserk. Forrest Gump is Professor Charles Xavier. Okay. To me, my X-Man. Jenny, can I sit next to you? No. Well, how about you? Jean Grey, can I sit next to you? These are bad, but I've never tried some of these voices. Thoughts on John Watts' Spider-Man? It's pretty good. It's pretty good for what it is. Do you go to Japan to pick up all those toy ball things? I have. Yeah, all those gachapon I picked up in Japan. I have one left, and I'm gonna stop giving away the prizes. It was really fun early on because I needed to get community engagement. I needed to get community engagement for my channel back when I only had like 100 subs. And it was a lot of fun to be able to give that stuff away and just to see the creative juices from the people out there that are drawing. But I hate having to regularly go to the post office, and it costs a fortune to mail those things when they're a certain distance. Like, it costs way, way, way more than the prize itself just to mail them. So I'm gonna phase that out. I just am. I thought about it before, and like then I got a bunch more gachapon. I'm not doing it anymore. I just can't. Can I do Optimus Prime's voice? I don't think so. Let me try, but I don't think so. Autobots, transform and roll out. It's the closest I can come up with. Let's see. Genndy Tartakovsky's pose-heavy animation style is perfectly suited for crazy action scenes. Would love to see his take on a superhero film. Sounds good. Somebody donate them to Chris? No, even if somebody donated the prizes, that's not the issue. I like buying the prizes. That's not expensive. The issue is going to the post office and paying the postage. Those are the two parts that I don't like doing. What trope challenge messed you up the most? Absinthe? No, it was eating all the cheeseburgers for the Archie comic. That was miserable. That was miserable. Wolverine always said, "Life is like a box of chocolates, bub. You never know what you're going to snict." Will I do an Alex Ross video? I'm sure I will at some point. You thought about doing regular drawing streams on Twitch? Yes, but I don't understand Twitch very well. I have a channel there, and I don't understand how to save my videos. I've streamed there a few times, and I just don't understand after I stream. Like, I can't find the videos to save an archive so that I've got a library of content to build, potential, like, newcomers. So I can't figure that out. I'm just stupid. I cannot figure it out. All right, folks. I think I'm going to take off. I've got to have some dinner, and I do want to work some more on the next Comic Tropes episode that I'm doing. Thanks for watching me. This was a lot of fun. Kind of a cool idea. If I had more time, this was going to be like, some really detailed buildings that like have like lots of wreckage and smoke and stuff. But for now, it's definitely fun to do. Clint Eastwood as Dr. Doom. Reed, you've made a mistake, and I'll tell you what that mistake is. You think you're smart? Well, are you smart enough to avoid a bullet? Punk? All right. Thoughts on the film Mystery Men? I remember it being very funny. I haven't rewatched it since it came out. I saw it in the theater. That was it. Thank you for all the kind words. Eva, Francesco, James, Rocho Films. Take care. Thank you for that. DCAM, yes, have a good night. The Muffin Man, you have a good one. Someone sane, you're more than welcome. I had a good time, folks. I got to take off. Just know that I appreciate all of you, and I'm working hard at coming up with another Comic Tropes episode. In the meantime, I have recently created a new Comic Tropes shirt. So if you're watching this on YouTube, take a look just underneath the video itself, and it should be the first shirt highlighted there. The World of Comics, I call it, and it's just like all the different names for comics around the world in the areas where they're really popular. And then I tried to use it in fonts that are appropriate. So it's comic books, manga, bande dessinée, fumetti, historietas. So anyway, please take a look. I'd love it if that was the right shirt for you. I'm going to take off until I see you, which will be very soon. Keep reading comics.